The Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of June 3rd, 2025 is called to order. It'll be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then applicant or representative. Then open public hearing and hear from those in favor and or those opposed to the request. When you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record. Before closing the public hearing, both staff and or applicant will and or their representative will be provided an opportunity to respond, to provide additional information and answer questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed and we will hear closing remarks from staff. The first item on the agenda will be to receive public comment to establish a planned unit development, PUD 2502, and small lot single-family residential RSS zoning at property addressed 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road. Shall hear from staff.
Yes, sir. Vice Chair, Commissioners. Today we're looking at, my name's Henry Biebelheimer with the Planning Department. Today we're looking at planned unit development 2502 for 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road. It's proposing a 42-lot residential development. Here's the area map outlined in pink, which shows McElroy on the south and Jardot east of the property. Here's the area map showing the surrounding residential uses. Here's the street view from the south side. So this is from McElroy looking north onto the property. Here's the surrounding zoning map. We see this property right here with the RSS, or residential small lot single family. We have RSL, which is large lot single family residential, to the north and the west. One correction I would make is this property right here to the east is zone CS commercial shopping. The map is wrong for that area. We have RSS single family to the south and RSL to the southwest. The future land use map does have this property slated for future commercial, with the north being low density residential. Here's the site plan that was submitted. It's also as an attachment in the packets that shows the 42 lot layout. We have common areas up here with the detention pond. We have a common area right here, public parking provided right here and right here. I'm sure we can come back to this if there are questions. Here are the requested modifications to the land development code. So a PUD or planned unit development can modify certain requirements in the land development code. So this is a quick summary of that. So starting at the top, the gross density current code requires 8 units per acre. They're requesting to go up to 10.2 units per acre. Most of the adjustments are in this lot size requirement right here. So we have the minimum lot area is normally 5,000 and they're requesting to go down to 2,400. The minimum lot width is from 50 to 30. Minimum lot depth is 100 to 80. The bulk regulations are largely the same with the 20-foot front and rear setbacks. The side setbacks would be 8 foot for 2-story structures. The PUD request is to do 8 foot for 5 foot for 2-story structures. And parking, the code will require 1 parking space per bedroom. The PUD proposal is 2 parking spaces per unit with a mix of 1 to 3 bedroom units. So access, there are 2 access points off of McElroy, which are outlined in red here. Their applicant is proposing a 24-foot wide private streets being proposed throughout the community for vehicular and pedestrian access. With the smaller width, so 24 is a little less than we would see standard, the full width of the street will have to be a fire lane, which does mean there's no on-street parking on either side. Also, no sidewalks are proposed within the development, as the street is proposed to be used for pedestrian access. So this is just from the code, the purpose of the planned unit developments. These are the 7 things that you could take into consideration. You can, of course, take other things, but this is the purpose. So number 1, to encourage diversified living environments and accommodate a mixture of land uses, which staff thinks this PUD does meet. Number 2 is to permit flexibility. This one is largely talking about topographical features, which is not relevant for this particular PUD. Number 3 is provide and preserve meaningful open space. This PUD does provide more open space than would be required by code. Number 4 is to encourage a more efficient use of land, public services, and natural resources. this PUD does meet that requirement. Number 5 is to provide a smooth transition for the surrounding densities. Staff does have some concern with the transition to the RSL or large lot residential to the north, as a chain link fence is being proposed there, which I'm sure will be discussed in the future. Number 6 is to encourage this provision of amenities beyond the minimum requirements. They are going above and beyond for landscaping on the east and west, more than what code would require, so going above and beyond on the amenities. And number 7 is to encourage accessibility and affordable housing, which this PUD is proposing to do as well. I'm here if you have any questions. The applicant, as well as the applicant's representative, is also here to speak.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Yes, I have a couple of questions related to item number 7, and that's section purpose of a PUD.
Yes, sir.
The staff report notes that at Cowboy Landing meets items 1, 4, 6, and 7. My questions relate to item 7. What is construed to be as accessible?
That is a good question. Whenever we wrote the staff report in relation to number 7, we were referring to affordable housing. With the lack of internal sidewalks for the residential streets, you could make a point that it's less accessible than code would require.
And affordable, as I understand it, these housing units will be about 1,300 square feet in the upper 200K price range, and that's considered to be affordable?
I can't speak to the price range at which they would be sold for, but I do believe the proposal is, and I'm sure the applicant could say this better, but I think the last I heard was between 800 and 1,600 square foot. Generally, smaller lot developments are a more affordable form of housing, but I can't speak to the actual price point of these homes.
I was just reading what the engineering firm had noted. So
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Also on that same area, I can't remember what you said about item 3, provide and preserve meaningful open space.
So they are providing open space right here for common area, as well as, I don't know how well you can see my mouse.
We're not.
So on the very north part of the property where it juts north right here, they're proposing a common area just west and south of the detention pond. They're also providing a common area right here, which,
We cannot see your.
You can see your right here, Henry.
let's see, how can I explain this better?
So you're talking about where the easternmost street runs all the way to the north.
Yes, sir.
Is that the detention pond at the end of the street?
Yes, sir. So where
And then
that,
to the west of that, behind those last 3 houses on on the west side of that street would be your common area.
yes, sir.
So
Yeah, I got it.
right in here. Okay.
There's not a set use for that that's been stated. It just is stated as common area, which is more than what code would require.
Is that what is also, we'll call it right off of McElroy Street, right in the center of the property?
In the center of the property, you have that one strip of houses that is kind of surrounded by houses, surrounded by roads. On the very easternmost lot of that is also common area.
That phase 3 is what it's referred to?
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, phase 3, the very easternmost lot there is also labeled as common area.
So the code requirement they're actually asking for a variance or allowing more units per acre by 2.2 units, half of the lot size for code requirement, and those are the code requirements for a PUD, correct?
Those are the code requirements for RSS. So if they
Those
were to
are-
do this
okay.
without a PUD.
So does PUD have specific requirements within itself, or is it just allow them to have variability, basically?
Yes, sir. So kind of the second one where it does allow the variability, but there are some limitations to that. So for example, if you look at the gross density here, it says under the proposed PUD section, it has 10.2 per acre. 12 per acre is allowed by section 23.306K. That's referencing a maximum that you could do with the PUD. So PUDs also do have limitations.
So do they have limitations within the lot area, lot width, lot depth?
No, sir.
Okay. And then I'm assuming also not on setbacks.
No, sir.
Okay. The side yard setback, it's saying 5 foot internal. I'm assuming that means on the internal wall to the property line. Would that be correct?
It would not. So 5 foot would be, I believe that was in reference to, let me find an example on here. 5 foot being like an internal lot. So for example, if you look on the islands, we'll call it the island of houses that are surrounded by roads, the westernmost lot, the eastern setback of that lot would be an internal lot because it's the two residential lots side by side, but the westernmost lot would be adjacent to a street.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for staff?
You may not know the answer to this, but the current code requirements, when were they last updated?
I believe the last comprehensive update was 2008.
Depends on.
Land Development Code was last updated in 2008. Nope.
It was 2010.
Or 2010, somewhere around there.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I would like to ask the applicant and/or their representative to come up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue. Pull this back up to the site plan just in case we need to get to it. But like Henry talked about, we're asking for a planned unit development to allow approximately 42 houses on 4.2 acres. That's the 10.2 acres that Henry talked about is what's being asked for. Code in base RSS districts is 8 units an acre, which on this property would be about 34 homes. The PUD allows up to 12 in an RSS if you can get it to fit, and that's 50. So we're at 42, so we're kind of sitting in the middle of that. The setbacks on the lots, 20 foot in the front, 20 foot in the rear, 5 foot between the buildings. If this was to develop just as RSS with frontage on McElroy, it'd be a 5 foot side yard on either side for a single story house. Also the problem or the difficulty if we develop this just as lots facing McElroy, you've got to have a common driveway because it's an arterial, and so the driveway spacing gets a little more complicated. So on this, we've gone access with 2 points. We've got 2 points just to allow better circulation, also for fire code. Once we're over 30 units, we have to have 2 points of access. The east drive is the main drive that will be gated. It'll have a call box. It lines up with the Wedgwood driveway across the street. And then the western drive is a secondary exit only for residents. It'll have a Knox box on it for emergency access to allow, both entrances to be used both directions during an emergency. Landscaping and buffers along both the eastern and western property lines. We're proposing a 6-foot wood fence in areas where trees can't be preserved, and going back with medium trees about every 30 feet to buffer that. On the west side, you'll notice a few more trees. We met with those property owners at the neighborhood meetings and a couple times afterwards, and we've added some additional trees over there to help screen their master bedroom, which is on the east side of the house. Because if you start putting in a fence big enough to screen it, it's going to be obnoxious. The plants, the trees, we feel are going to be a little better buffer. Along the north side, again, in areas where we can't save trees, there we're proposing a 6-foot vinyl coated chain link fence, just something not as obstructive, and still go back in with trees if need be. From an infrastructure standpoint, the detention pond is at the northeast corner of the site within phase 1. So it'll go in early, get in prior to any paving that's done. The water and sewer we can phase from that side. Phase 2 will get us that South Street and over to the second entrance. And then phase 3 would be the northwest quadrant of the project. I know there were some concerns in some of the neighborhood meetings about easements and everything. There's an OG&E easement along the front of the property. There's some high voltage lines that I believe serve OSU. They're in an easement that varies from 26 to 27 feet along our frontage. And so our initial building setback is behind that because we know we can't build in that. We're also proposing a 7-foot right-of-way dedication with this project to get the McElroy right-of-way for the minor arterial up to where it needs to be with a 40-foot half section, because right now it's a statutory 33-foot right-of-way. With regard to sidewalks and the parking along the streets, with these narrower width lots, the 30 feet, and we put a driveway in, there's really not room to put parallel parking on the street anyways. And so allow one car in the garage, one car in the front, then utilize that drive as a drive, no cars, with it being gated and having the loop, allowing the residents to walk within the street. There shouldn't be any high speed. Shouldn't be, always you can't stop everybody, but the intent would be to have this as a walkable neighborhood, and our current code allows for dead-end cul-de-sacs and some other places where you don't need sidewalks, so it's not unprecedented, whatever, to not have sidewalks.
So would you actually have no parking signs up throughout there?
Yeah, based on discussions with the fire marshal, we're either going to paint the curbs red and mark them fire lanes, or we would have the no parking fire lane signs spaced throughout as dictated in the fire code.
And the driveway's one car wide?
The ones in front of the units, yes. With regard to Mr. Shanahan's comment about, or questions about affordable housing, we'll let Mr. Alusi, who's a representative of the developer, address any of those concerns. The note we had was from the neighborhood meeting, so that was just a memo. That's why it was on our letterhead.
So an HOA would be responsible for the streets within the property?
Correct.
Will these be single-family homes or rentals or combination?
I mean, they're going to be built and permitted as single-family homes, but in Stillwater, you can do long-term rentals, you can do owner-occupied, so there'll be no restriction saying they must be owner-occupied. I don't think we could do that by law. I mean, we could try, but I don't want to fight with the attorneys on that one. So, any questions, or we can let the citizens ask questions and then go from there?
Why the chain link fence with the screening to the north rather than the 6
I mean, for us, it was just by the time you start boxing in, it starts to feel really tight. You got 6-foot fences on 2 sides and on the third side. On the west half of that, it's the back end of a site that the house is closer to Skyline. That's a real long, skinny lot that faces Skyline. With the topography back there, we didn't really think anything might be done in the near future. And so that chain link fence would just provide a little softer buffer. And then on the east half of that, it's an undeveloped pasture right now. It could be developed in the future. But again, it was just try to soften that edge up a little bit.
Commissioners, any other questions? Or questions for the applicant? Yeah, if you want to speak to Commissioner Shanahan's previous question.
Thank you. So my name is Saif Alusi, 2002 East McCalvary, Stillwater. So just to give you guys an idea of what Cowboy Landing is all about, we realize there's a need for housing here in Stillwater. That's part of the thing that we've noticed the community is actually currently doing the planning is being done right now and how we're going to be able to accomplish this. We've had this property for a few years now. We actually rezoned it to the RSS previously with y'all, so we do appreciate that. While we were doing this project, we realized that we had a close tie to one of the owners that own a land behind us, the Roy family. So out of respect, we've held off on this project for a few years for that family. From there, we've now needed to develop this project, and that's why the most useful way of doing this is the development that we're proposing. I'm happy to be here to answer any of the questions for all of my neighbors because, again, we respect them. That's why we held the 2 meetings to try to accommodate everyone that had their questions. We prefer the word achievable housing. It's just the way things are right now. For new construction, it's just so costly. The real money goes into all the underground stuff that we're doing, all the utilities, all the infrastructure that's going in there. And the reality is each one of these lots generate tax revenue for the city. That helps you guys bring more fire staff, more police officers, more staff on board. That helps provide other services for this community. We're also hopeful that this, because of the location and direct route to OSU, can be a great source for students to go to college and so forth. So we think this generates a lot of things. The fact that it's gated too is trying to give, again, the appearance of a very nice quality add-on to the community. And again, we're not trying to interfere with anyone. That's why we're trying to bring a real pretty product to the site. So, but I'm happy to be here to answer any of the questions after everyone has their points brought. So thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioners? Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing and hear from anyone who has opposition or in favor of this topic. So first, we'll open the public hearing to anybody who would like to speak in favor.
Can I just go down the list?
And then if not seeing anyone in favor, if we want to do anyone speaking in opposition, I first off have Steve Fairbanks.
Say if they're speaking in opposition, and you write it on there.
My name is Steve Fairbanks. My wife Kathy and I live at 1724 East McElroy, west of the land being considered for rezoning. After a careful consideration, consulting with city staff and Mr. Ghost, the Payne County Clerk's office, and others with knowledge of zoning rules and regulations, my wife and I have decided to oppose the rezoning request for the following reasons. On May 3rd of 2022, the property was rezoned from large lot residential to small lot residential. This new zoning request for a planned unit development does not fit the neighborhood. The homes in Wedgewood, on McElroy Place, Skyline Lane, Jardeau, Payne, and Linda are not like any of these homes that are being proposed. So we ask you to keep the zoning small lot residential, just like the lot size in Wedgewood. My front door faces McElroy. McElroy is a fast, loud, high-tempo traffic corridor, even when the 20-mile-per-hour school zone is activated. Adding 80 vehicles in the development will increase the traffic noise and the volume of vehicles already on a busy street. My back door faces to the north, away from McElroy. The view out my back door looks like a rural setting. The most appealing aspect of the patio is the quiet, peaceful, and comfortable atmosphere that surrounds us. 80 to 120 new neighbors and 80 cars, coupled with the sounds of barking dogs and outdoor activities, will permanently destroy our quiet backyard. The second objection to rezoning this property concerns fire safety. If ultra-strong winds, dry conditions, and a fire near this property ever replicated the conditions that burned many of the homes in southwest Stillwater, embers from burning trees could easily transfer to the roofs and would be difficult to put out. The proposed houses are just 10 feet apart. That's just a few feet longer than my outstretched arms. On the evening of the small lot residential approval, Mr. Lucy indicated that he would be moving into the house at the 2002 address and he would mow the properties. Mr. Lucy has not followed up on what he says he will do. He lives in Tulsa. And the grass was cut last week for the first time this year. The front grass was cut last week. The pictures you have show the backyards of those properties. The grass has not been cut this year. And the vegetation in the backyards is currently knee-deep. Recent high winds broke a tree limb that blocked the north lane of McElroy. Someone placed red cones around it, and after several days, I took my chainsaw, cut it up, and drug it out of the street and put it back on the grass. It's still there. If I had more time, I could ask these questions. What does 80 cars in a small area do to a traffic congestion? We learned it isn't enough to qualify for a traffic study. Where does the 10th guest park since there are only 9 extra parking spaces for 42 houses? Common sense tells me 40 new families will have an impact on water usage and sewage outflow. Will the proposed infrastructure tie to existing infrastructure and handle the issue? Children walking to Skyline School will have to cross McElroy twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon because there are no sidewalks on the north side of McElroy. There's also no crossing guards, and McElroy is a very busy street.
Sir,
This could be an accident waiting to happen.
I apologize that we didn't tell you ahead of time. You each get 5 minutes to speak, and you've got 1 minute left.
Good, I'm about done.
Okay.
2-story houses overlooking a 6-foot fence doesn't provide much privacy. And additional landscaping trees and an 8-foot composite fence would be a better privacy improvement. And with Mr. Lucy's track record on lawn care, I have concerns about all the management, property management. And if the project stops before the completion of all 3 phases, will the property be returned to a reasonable condition, or will it look like an abandoned construction site? I could have talked about all those issues, but the 2 most important topics, it's not like any house in our area, and the fire safety issue.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Next, I'd like to call in, see if Jacqueline Morrison would like to speak.
You restarted there. That's what makes it start back to 5. Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
I just want to say.
Will you please state your name and
excuse
address
me,
for the record? Thank you.
Jacqueline- Okay, my name is Jacqueline Hooper Morrison. I own 3.5 acres to the east of, the property, but it's a rental. It is zoned commercial shopping. I actually live on East 6th Street. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I say the proposed development, I feel, is not at all conducive to the environment of the existing surrounding homes. In regards to structure, lot size, room size, color, and a 6-foot fence, no, it has to be 7 or higher. Also, I'd like for you to note The money taken in from this development in regards to ownership, rent, and however it be, does not stay in Stillwater, but goes to the out-of-town developer and owners. Also, I want to know, who is going to build, who would build these? Are they bringing in their own construction people? Are they bringing in all of their lumber, paint, and all of these issues? And are they going to hire Stillwater construction workers to do the work? Therefore, I just feel that this does not economically benefit the city of Stillwater at all whatsoever. Questions to me?
No, thank you. Next on our list, I have Kathy Fairbanks.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Fairbanks, and I reside at 1724 East McElroy with that other guy. We have lived in our home for 44 years since we built it in 1981. This proposed development, as we said, would be on our 300-foot east property line. My main objection to this PUD is that it is not similar or compatible with the surrounding neighbors, many of which are large lot like ours is to the north and the west, and the Wedgwood neighborhood is small lot residential. In 2022, when the lots were proposed to be rezoned to small lot, we were present for the Planning Commission meeting, but we didn't object to the rezoning. To me, but tonight we do object. To me, it feels like spot zoning. I know it's a PUD, but to me, it's spot zoning. Would you be in favor of a development like that beside your home? I urge you not to approve this. I do have a couple other concerns. Our family has lived in Stillwater for 50 years. It's our home. We love it here. And we care about all the residents of Stillwater, including the ones that are looking for affordable housing. But in studying this proposal, I'm very concerned about several items. Ones that affect the safety of many residents in Stillwater, including the residents of this proposal, not just our family. I'm concerned about the increased traffic on McElroy, an already busy street, which has been stated. 40 to 80 additional cars on McElroy making multiple trips during the day is worrisome. And currently, many cars exceed the posted speed limits on McElroy, even during the school zone time, which begins on our property. And of the last few years, many semi-trucks pass by our house going towards Main and Perkins Road and back on a regular basis. I'm also worried about the safety of the residents in this unit due to the lack of sidewalks and spaces to gather and play. I know there are some, but we're still talking about 42 houses, and I fear the streets may become play areas. I can imagine somebody putting up one of those portable basketball goals on the edge of their curb and people gathering to play in the street. The other item that's really a concern to us is parking. And at this time, I would like for everybody in the room to indulge me in taking a 2-question survey. First, would you raise your hand if you have a garage at your residence?
Okay.
Everybody, all of you.
You don't get to ask questions.
I don't get to ask questions. I don't get
For
to
the
take a
group,
survey.
it has to be
Well,
just
think about
comments
it.
directed
Do you
to
have
the-
a garage at your house? And then, do you regularly park in the garage at your house, or do you park on your driveway? I obviously don't have any data right now, and I haven't done a neighborhood study, but I believe really that few families park in their garage. They have other stuff in their garage. So this proposal shows a 1-car garage and a concrete pad for a second vehicle or a guest. If the garage spot, is otherwise occupied and a resident has 2 vehicles, where can they park their second one in this plan? There's no on-street parking, which I fear will be difficult to enforce 24 hours a day, and street parking is not allowed on McElroy. The proposal does have 9 guest parking spots. This doesn't seem like clearly enough extra parking. What about holidays, birthday parties? Where will the 10th guest park, or the residents park their second vehicle if their garage is not usable? Again, I request that you do not approve this development, and I thank you for your time and your service to the citizens of Stillwater to help ensure safe neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jen Sanders.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jen Sanders. I live at 1702 East McElroy Road, just next to the Fairbanks, who are right next to the planned development. So I'm essentially one door down from this planned unit development. I also oppose the rezoning of this whole lot. If the current zoning is 8 units per acre, it seems like if you keep that 8 units per acre and don't increase it to 10.5, then perhaps there would be more space for a sidewalk within the neighborhood, for parking and driveways or parking lots that could accommodate the number of units that would then be included in the development. So if it's 8 units times 4 acres and there's 32 units total, that leaves more space for the parking that would be sufficient for 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. We know that in Stillwater, with the number of students and the number of parents buying homes for their students, their families, their children to study, it tends to become 1 student per bedroom with a car per student, or maybe even more than 1 student per bedroom. So the idea of packing in that many, I mean, it's just very difficult. It's impractical that you would have 42 units with as limited little amount of parking, and to think that they're not going to park in the streets and they can't have anybody over. Nobody else can come over to your house because there isn't a place to park, so nobody can have guests other than the 9 spaces total. And I agree, I concur with my neighbors that we live on McElroy. Our driveway is on McElroy. When we cross the street to go for a walk, it is very dangerous because there's no sidewalk on our side of the street. So we're crossing 4 lanes of traffic to go for a walk, to walk the dog, or we're cutting through our neighbor's yard, which always seems a little awkward. So people are going to be cutting through our yards to get to Skyline to find a sidewalk, or they're going to be crossing 4 lanes of traffic. Again, unsafe, impractical. If you have 42 homes and families, they're going to be going for walks. They're going to need parking. And I'm not opposed to accessible, affordable housing. I think we have a housing shortage. I work at the university, and I know that students are always looking and struggling for housing, both on and off campus. So I'm in favor of that in general. But this plan doesn't seem safe or practical within this space and within this location. There's also no turn lane on McElroy. So you're going to have 80 cars, potentially, additional cars turning in and out with no turn lane right next to a school zone, right next to family housing with children walking to school constantly. It's not safe. So if the development is allowed, I would ask that you keep the zoning as it is, at 8 units per acre, and that would make for some more affordable, for more practical use of spaces, more safe use of spaces. I don't know if you can answer this question, or if somebody can answer this question later, but I wasn't clear on how far from the property line these units are allowed to be built. So how far from the Fairbanks property line will the units be built? Are they going to be 10 feet off of the property line, which is the typical requirement? Or I thought I heard something about 5 feet from the property line, but I wasn't sure if I understood that correctly. So maybe somebody can clarify that later. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Last, I have Lawrence Roy.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Lawrence Joseph Roy. I go by Larry. I speak on behalf of my 93-year-old mother, Jolene Marie Roy, who resides at 1819 Linda Avenue, which is located directly north of this proposed development. When I speak in the plural tonight, I'm referring to the thoughts of our family. My mother is also the owner of the undeveloped field located on the northern boundary of the planned development. On your mapping, I think it's referred to as 928. Yes. On behalf of my mother, I speak against the new planned development as proposed in the PUD. When the Planning Commission considered the zoning change for this development several years ago in 2022, my father and I attended that meeting. We voiced no opposition to the plan to rezone the area to single-family small lot, as we were told by Mr. Lucy that the homes in the development would be very similar in style to the homes in Wedgwood, which is located across McElroy, directly south of this development. In fact, we understood him to say that this development neighborhood would look just like the one across the street. Those homes are very attractive homes, many of them brick and mortar on lots that are small, but adequately spaced such that it does not have the appearance of a compound. Since that development was nearly completed, we did not believe that another development similar in appearance across McElroy to the north would negatively impact the general flavor of the neighborhood as it existed at that time. Our main concern at that time was the impact of the water drainage runoff onto our property to the north and how that would be managed into the general drainage pattern of the area given the dramatic new footprint of roof and concrete that would replace vegetation for absorption. We were assured by the Commission that adequate attention would be given to that problem. With the new proposal for development as represented in the PUD and discussed at the neighborhood meeting, we now have two main objections. The first concerns the general appearance of the new neighborhood and how it would impact the existing property values and the flavor of the neighborhood. I hope I'm not being too vague with that poetic reference. At the neighborhood meeting, we were shown a sketch of the appearance of the proposed homes to be constructed, although it was explained that the construction of the homes would allow the architecture to be flipped in appearance from the front, and that some cosmetic changes would allow them to take on a unique appearance. They would all be constructed out of fabricated materials and stacked two-story with 10-foot spacing between the homes on much smaller lots than currently exist in Wedgwood. In my vision of the finished neighborhood proposed in the PUD, this would clearly give the appearance of a cookie-cutter compound and not representative of the homes in Wedgwood. We do not have information as to how this would affect the values of existing properties in the area, as we have also been told that there is no other existing neighborhood in Stillwater similar to this as it is proposed. We do have the opinion that the development is likely to negatively impact our current property values. It will clearly change the flavor of the neighborhood. The micro-lot plan may be acceptable in close proximity to the campus for owners that likely have high turnover, but it does not fit with the long-established large lot neighborhood that predominates this area. This, too, does not complement the long-established current neighborhood or current property values. Our other concern remains, as voiced previously, how the dramatically increased footprint of roof and concrete and the decrease in absorptive vegetation will dramatically affect water runoff and management of drainage. The planned development is uphill and south of our property, which with current drainage running in a general northeast direction onto our land and south on our property. The engineers hired by the development have explained a plan with a detention structure. We still have concerns about the quantity of water that would be dumped on our property. Meaning no disrespect to Mr. Lucy and his investors, we understand the desire to maximize investor profits with the development, but not at the expense of negatively impacting the current homeowners. We therefore ask the Commission to recommend against the current PUD and encourage development as originally proposed several years ago in the original rezoning request. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone else that would like to speak in opposition. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and invite the applicant and representative to come back up and answer questions.
I can address a couple of the items having to do with the layout and that kind of stuff, and then Mr. Alusi can speak to some of the other items. The infrastructure capacity question, the city asks for, when we start projects like this, a water and sewer demand. So we calculate the estimated water and sewer demand of this development, provide that to the city. They put it in the model and look at it through the engineering review to make sure they can handle it and alert us if it can't, and if there's system improvements that are required. So far, we haven't heard that there's capacity issues. The sidewalk on McElroy, we're proposing a 6-foot sidewalk along the frontage as required by code. There's sidewalks all around town, unfortunately, that don't go anywhere, but you got to start somewhere. And I know the cities, I believe they have a program to go fill in gaps and things where they're seeing traffic. So that may be an opportunity to get some help somehow on the lots to the west, getting over to Skyline to put those in. I would think, my understanding, if I remember right in the code, if we were to develop this as large lot, like 10,000 square foot plus houses, you don't have to put a sidewalk in anyways. Because it's an arterial, you might have to, but so we're putting in the sidewalk we can. And for sure don't want people playing Frogger across McElroy, but we can put the sidewalk in on our side. And then the question about the edge buffers along the west and east property lines, specifically on the west adjacent to the Fairbanks, we have a 20-foot buffer over there, and then the house is sitting another foot or two. So we're 22 feet from the back of the house to the property line on all three sides, the west, the north, and the east. It's not the 5 or 10 feet that would be allowed if they were just platted or developed as small or large lot, single family. So if there's any questions about those things, I can try to address those, or Mr. Alusi can work on addressing the other comments and concerns.
Commissioners, any questions?
Thank you.
Just for a second, so we can show an idea. Where's the camera? Sorry.
Would they have that
Oh, we're
picture?
behind us. Sorry.
Now it's in front of us.
Thank you. Sorry. Just so everyone can see, this is the style of house we're looking to put in there. So it's not something that is just going to be bringing down the values in the property, but I'll let you have that, sir. Just to address kind of change is always difficult. You know, we realize that this is going to be impacting everyone, but at the same time, every year things change. And just in terms of bringing us back to how we belong to Stillwater, I wouldn't be standing in front of you all, and I said this in the previous conversation when we did the zoning, if it wasn't for the wonderful Roy family. My mom grew up in the American Legion Children's Home. She was sponsored by the city of Stillwater and the Stillwater Ladies Auxiliary. So I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for that. So we've been here for a long time. And that it was wonderful to find out that the Roys were our neighbors. And that's out of respect is why we've waited 3 years to do any kind of development for this, because of Mr. Roy's concerns about what was going to happen. At this point, we have to start working towards developing the property. It's a need for the city. We see the need for all the infrastructure that's going to go into it to help out with providing tax revenue for the city, bringing in housing, safe housing, clean housing. You know, in terms of fire concerns, I was a firefighter paramedic. We're using new construction. All the new materials have better fire ratings than the pre-existing ones. The additional property tax helped bring in more firefighters. Again, revenue to be able to help support issues that happened already here in the city of Stillwater. I believe we're already down 79 houses, unfortunately, because of the horrible storm and weather that happened. So we're doing our best. Unfortunately, with the costs that are involved in construction, it's just not practical for us. We would have loved to put 80 units in here just because of the fact that, again, bringing in more people brings in value. However, we've reduced it down to 42 units. So I think for the community, that's what we're trying to provide. Again, because it's gated, I think it allows us to run the management company through the HOA that, again, puts all the bylaws into it and so forth, that allows us to kind of control what happens behind the gates. That's why we are putting the gates into it. In regards to hiring locally, we do. I mean, this is why our civil engineers are local. Our attorney is local. It's John Bartley. So he's going to be representing us for this project on helping us different things. Our plumbers are Okie plumbers. They're huge in the city of Stillwater. Pure Electric is another group that does all of our electrical stuff. Their city is Stillwater. So again, we pull from local suppliers. You guys, this impacts people in the neighborhood, but it also impacts all the people in the city. So that's where we want you guys to consider this project, and that's why we hopefully put together a positive piece. So thank you all. Any questions? No. Thank you. Oh.
9 guest parking spaces. I was trying to find them. They're just kind of scattered out around the property. I think I see 6 of them.
Is there a way to pull the map back up? So in that middle row where those 8 homes are in the middle.
Yeah, the phase 3.
And it says phase 3. So at the east end of that, and it'll be in phase 1, is the common area, and there's 3 spaces there.
Okay.
And then immediately to the north, page up from that, there's a house that's within phase 3, but the phase boundary's on the right. The balance of those are on the east side of that house, in that road that's headed towards the detention pond. So they're near that common area, and the common area will go in with phase 1, not phase 3.
Okay, so all other 6 parking spots are there? North
Yes.
Of the, okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Has there been any traffic study on McElroy to how this would impact traffic on McElroy?
We have not done a traffic study as part of this. The city requirements, it's 100 peak hour trips or 1,000 trips a day. And you've got to get up to a lot more homes and bedrooms to trigger that. You're usually in that 80 to 100 unit range to trigger that. And so, the 42 units spaced out over an hour, typically, I mean, anytime we've seen it, and the go-bys from the national standards for trip generation, this wouldn't get near that 100 peak hour trips.
Okay. Did you all look at having, it was a question that was brought up, being the 32 units for the 4-acre meeting code. Did you all look at any designs for that? Or did you start and you're still this was the lowest that you got to?
This is about the 82nd iteration of this site plan. I mean, from small, super small, medium small, large small, 50 by 100 foot lots. It's just with the way it's shaped, it's an awkward piece of land to get a pure density of 8 units an acre. So, but yeah, like when Mr. Lucy came in, it looked totally different than it looks today. And so this is kind of where it's narrowed into.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you.
So it's possible you could have fewer numbers of houses. You said it's the 80th iteration.
I mean, there's 2 houses on it today.
Right.
So, I mean, we could probably put a 3rd house on it, but the economics of it don't work.
But if you've had 80 iterations, give me some other possibilities. If there's only been 2.
I mean, to try to meet the intent, the allowable density within the PUD, to do a PUD in that 12 units an acre, we're at 10.2, so 10 units an acre. So we're not at the maximum that could be allowed. And again, we settled on a 20-foot by 40-foot building footprint, try to get something that could function inside the house. I mean, we could do smaller footprints, ask for even smaller. We could do townhomes to try to remove side yard setbacks. Anything's possible.
Right, but if it wasn't a PUD, there's room for 32 houses. Is that correct?
In theory, yeah. And we wouldn't be here discussing the PUD.
Right. Thank you.
One of the things that the neighbors did mention was higher fencing. Would that be something that you are open to?
So we definitely considered, I mean, we've already listened to the neighbors that came in our first meeting that had a couple of complaints about some of the parking issues, and we've already addressed that. So we're definitely flexible in trying to work with the neighbors. So as long as, depending on where it was, and as long as we didn't have to cut down any trees to put in higher fencing or impact it in any way, I'd be willing to consider that.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I will ask staff to come back to present alternatives.
Yes, sir. So, staff findings. The proposed use of conventional single-family is allowed by right in the RSS zoning district. PUD 2502 or Cowboy Landing requests significant variations to the lot size requirements to facilitate the increased density. The proposed planned unit development substantially meets the purpose of a PUD found in section there, which we discussed earlier. And another section of code states that the approved preliminary PUD may serve as the PUD preliminary plat. What that means is the exhibit we've been looking at, the applicant has requested that count as the preliminary plat as well, which means the next time, if this were to be approved, the next time you would see this project is for the final plat. So the alternatives are to accept the findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed planned unit development, to accept findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed planned unit development subject to specific conditions being met, to find the planned unit development is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the request, or to find the additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation and table the request to a certain date. Staff's recommendation is that based on the surrounding land uses, staff recommends approval of the planned unit development for Cowboy Landing. I'm open to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioners, any discussion, any questions?
Well, when I first looked at the layout, I thought it looks really aggressive as far as spacing. And I think my biggest concern is really the parking, because if it's a single garage with a driveway that's the width of one car, most places will have, I would think, 2 people minimum staying there. I don't see how cars don't end up on the street, even despite best efforts. So, but on the other hand, the people that'll have to deal with that are the neighbors in that neighborhood. So it's not people, from surrounding neighborhoods that have to deal with that. So I don't know how seriously to weigh that, but I could see parking will be an ongoing problem. I just don't see how it wouldn't be. And all of the guest spots are in one area, so somebody on the south west part, it's a decent walk to get to a guest parking spot.
I agree with you on that. I also agree that it would seem to me that would mainly just affect those living within the neighborhood, and that is something they're going to know when they're looking at buying those houses or renting.
I do like the look of the house that he showed the picture of and the one that's also in here. So, I mean, I do think they're tastefully done.
There are a lot of features about it that I like. I'm just concerned with the density.
I think that I look at it as the density meets a standard for a PUD. It is that type of development is a very dense development. It's just whether or not we think that a PUD fits at this location off McElroy next to that neighborhood. That's the question to me, is not how dense is the neighborhood, is the parking. That is what a PUD is. And it's just whether or not the PUD fits at that spot is how I see it.
Correct. So in essence, a question of scale, integrating itself into this neighborhood, which is at least the immediate area, more low density, correct?
Correct.
And then you have to balance that out against the need for housing in the city. We've seen similar, I have, requests for zoning, up zoning to increase density. And there's the typical NIMBY, and I'm not using that as a pejorative term, but concern. And I don't know really the best way to balance those two factors out.
Yeah, when looking at this type of development, it's going to be difficult to find somewhere in the city where it's like, oh, that's perfect.
Correct.
You're never going to find that in Stillwater.
No, you're not, or anywhere, really. I think perhaps being a gated community helps contain it, and I think there should be some very serious consideration regarding increased screening or fencing. I would not like to see that just say, well, I would consider it. I would like to think there would be serious consideration of that, given the concerns of the neighbors.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I understand that to get a return on the investment, the density, they've come up with what they're proposing. So, as you mentioned, it does fit within the limits of a PUD. So I think you framed it well as far as what the issues are. Then of all the things they mentioned as far as the purpose, one of them doesn't apply of the 7, and the one that's a concern is provide a smooth transition from surrounding densities, which is what everybody's brought up.
Which again is just going to be difficult no matter where you place it.
Yeah.
I would agree with Commissioner Shanahan. I think that higher fencing would probably be appreciated by the neighbors and keep it as the PUD is within the PUD. It creates a better separation from the surrounding areas.
That could be a specific condition.
It could be. Well, any further discussion, or is anyone entertaining a motion?
I guess I would make a motion to accept the findings and recommend the City Council approve the proposed unit subject to specific conditions being met, and that being that fencing be minimum of 7 foot? It's 6 now, and one of the neighbors said 7 to 8.
So I have
On the wooden fencing?
Mm-hmm.
I have a motion.
Hold on.
Probably should be more specific.
Maybe you can help with this, Henry, because there was, I'm guessing the chain link fences are not even 6 feet high?
The proposed chain link fence on the north is 6 foot.
Okay. Are you wanting 7-foot chain link fencing on the north?
I don't know that I have an opinion about that. I mean, I understood the purpose of that fence was because they did want the open view. So that's why they didn't go with wooden. But the fence to the west is between that and some neighbors, so it seemed to be more of a concern.
So clarification, your motion is to approve with the stipulation of
Wooden fences be 8 feet.
on
How
the
about
east
that?
and west side of the property.
Well, I don't want to get it wrong, so I better look. This is a fence here. That's a 5-foot fence there. And that's a 6-foot fence. And that up here is vinyl. Everything to the north is vinyl coated.
Correct.
So you're right. It'd be, I don't know what's a reasonable request for fence height. So eight, it seemed like 8 foot to the west, 7 foot to the east. 2 foot taller than what's shown in both cases.
Will you go ahead and get a clear motion on that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, can I start again?
Did you want to add something?
No.
Oh,
That's why you were back. Oh. Could you add something?
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the findings and recommend that the city council approve the proposed planned unit development with 2 conditions: that the fence on the west property, the wooden fence on the west property, be a minimum of 7 foot tall. I'm sorry, 8 foot tall on the west property, and the fence on the east be a minimum of 7 foot tall.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second. We'll shall vote. Motion passes 3-1. Next item on the agenda, now that public hearing will be closed, we have the regular meeting minutes summary from the May 6th Planning Commission meeting. Do we have any corrections? I do, actually. At the members present, it has Mark Prather listed as vice chair.
Yeah, that's not me.
So that needs to be adjusted to myself. And then under Vice Chair Williams asked for clarification that this material was allowed on the 2025 code, but was taken off on the 2019 code. I believe that 2025 should have been 2015.
With those adjustments, I move we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 4-0. Lastly on the agenda, we have miscellaneous items from staff, Planning Commission, or City Attorney for discussion or possible action. All that we have noted is the next regular meeting is June 24th of 2025. With that, I would entertain motions to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 4-0. We stand adjourned.